I laughed so hard that hot coffee shot out of my nose and splattered across the polished control panel of my apartment. The cleaning drone beeped in protest, but I couldn't stop laughing. Somewhere in this enormous galaxy filled with diplomats, pirates, artificial intelligences, and six-armed accountants, my parents had managed to invent the dumbest financial document ever created. The envelope sitting in front of me looked painfully official. Heavy cream-colored paper. Golden seal. My father's signature at the bottom. If someone had handed it to a galactic court judge, they would have assumed it contained a peace treaty. Instead, it was a bill. Not just any bill. A bill for raising me. Apparently, according to my parents, the first 24 years of my life had actually been a long-term loan. I leaned back in my chair aboard Orion Station, humanity's busiest trade hub, and rubbed my forehead while reading the numbers again. Diapers, 2,000 galactic credits. Reasonable enough. School lunches, 31,000 credits. Questionable. Electricity consumed while occupying bedroom, adjusted for inflation. Seriously? Then came my favorite line. Emotional inconvenience tax, priceless. I snorted again. Now that's creative. Outside my panoramic apartment window, dozens of sleek alien freighters drifted between docking platforms. Bright advertisements shimmered against the stars, welcoming travelers from over 100 civilizations. Humans had become famous throughout the Galactic Union for impossible engineering projects, fearless rescue missions, and somehow making friends with species everyone else considered terrifying. We had earned respect across the stars. Yet somehow, my own parents still treated me like an unpaid investment portfolio. The timing made everything even more ridiculous. My younger sister was getting married in 3 weeks. I actually couldn't wait to attend. Emily had always been my favorite person in the family. While our parents measured affection by obedience and appearances, Emily cared about people. She laughed at my terrible jokes, defended me during family arguments, and secretly mailed me birthday presents after I'd moved off Earth. She deserved happiness. Even better, she had found it. Her fiancé, Kalen, belonged to the Varek people, elegant fox-like aliens famous for diplomacy, loyalty, and dramatic wedding ceremonies that lasted 2 entire days. He adored Emily with the kind of sincerity that made everyone else look lazy. During our last holocall, he'd spent 20 minutes asking my advice on human dancing because he wanted to surprise her at the reception. That man was impossible to dislike. Which made this invoice even more unbelievable. I turned another page. There it was. The famous 5 conditions. Condition 1. Full repayment of all parental expenses before the ceremony. Condition 2. Purchase a wedding gift valued at no less than 50,000 galactic credits. Condition 3. Deliver a public apology for choosing a career that embarrassed the family by making them look financially unsuccessful. I blinked twice. Wait. They wanted me to apologize. For becoming successful? Condition 4. Accept seating in the last row without complaint. Condition 5. Never discuss this agreement with guests or the bride. I stared at the paper for nearly a minute before bursting into another fit of laughter. Oh, they're serious. The family group chat chimed. Dad, we expect payment within 7 days. Mom, a grateful child understands sacrifice. Dad, failure to comply means you are choosing not to attend. I looked around my apartment as if hidden cameras might suddenly reveal this was some elaborate comedy show. No cameras. No prank. Just 2 adults who had somehow converted parenthood into a subscription service with overdue fees. I opened another attachment. Naturally, there was interest. Compounded annually. Of course there was. The total came to just over 300,000 galactic credits. I whistled. That's expensive childhood. The cleaning drone finally finished wiping the coffee off the floor and projected a cheerful message. Mess detected. Mess resolved. Have a better day. I intend to. I folded every page neatly and placed them back inside the envelope. If my parents wanted to pretend families were businesses, if they believed every kindness deserved an invoice, If they genuinely thought love could be calculated with receipts and compound interest, then I was about to become the most thorough accountant in the entire Galactic Union. And unlike them, I had 20 years of unpaid work with receipts they had conveniently forgotten. By the time the station's artificial sunrise illuminated my apartment, I had stopped laughing long enough to think strategically. Revenge sounded exhausting. Comedy, on the other hand, practically wrote itself. If my parents insisted on turning our family into a business, then I would simply become the better accountant. You're smiling in that dangerous human way again. I looked up to see Lyra stepping through the apartment doorway carrying 2 steaming cups of starberry tea. Her silver-blue skin shimmered under the morning light, and the tiny bioluminescent markings along her cheeks brightened as she smiled. Among her people, those glowing patterns changed with emotion. Around me, they almost always glowed warmly. She handed me a cup before noticing the thick envelope on the table. Another wedding invitation? Worse. She skimmed the first page. Her smile disappeared. Then her golden eyes grew wider with every line she read. They charged you for childhood. Oh, keep reading. A minute later she reached the section labeled Emotional Inconvenience Tax. She froze. Her shoulders began shaking. The next thing I knew, she was laughing so hard she had to sit on the floor. I've negotiated trade agreements between 7 warrior civilizations, she gasped between laughs. I've watched 2 emperors argue over asteroid ownership. Yet somehow this is the most ridiculous document I've ever seen. I told you. She wiped tears from her eyes. They even added compound interest. I know. They're billing you for birthday cake. I noticed. She burst into another fit of laughter. You humans are impossible. No, I corrected. Just my parents. Once the laughter settled, Lyra leaned over the table. So, are you going to pay them? I nearly dropped my tea. Absolutely not. Good. She smiled mischievously. Because I have a better idea. That expression usually meant one of 2 things. Either we'd end up dancing under alien fireworks, or someone was about to regret underestimating us. She activated the holographic workstation. Let's calculate. I raised an eyebrow. Calculate what? What they owe you. The first entry appeared. 14 years of babysitting your sister every weekend while your parents traveled. I never charged for that. You are now. Next came home repairs. Replacing the roof after a storm. Fixing plumbing. Painting the house. Repairing fences. Installing solar panels. Building a garage. I laughed. I really did all that. And according to your father's logic, Lyra said while typing rapidly, family labor is billable. More items followed. Emergency car repairs. Computer maintenance. Holiday dinners I personally paid for after my father lost his job. Covering utility bills for 6 months without asking for repayment. Building my parents' vacation cabin with my own hands. Helping Emily through university applications. Flying home whenever there was another family crisis. Then Lyra added something that made me blink. What's this? Emotional labor. You can charge for that? They did. Fair point. She kept typing. Listening to arguments until 2 in the morning. Mediating family disputes. Canceling vacations to solve emergencies. Being the responsible sibling every single holiday. I couldn't even argue. Then she added another line. Therapy recommendations ignored by clients. Administrative fee applied. I laughed so loudly that the apartment assistant politely asked whether medical assistance was required. No, I answered. Just accounting. Oh, we're nowhere near finished, Lyra said. She scrolled through 20 years of photos, messages, receipts, and old banking records I had almost forgotten existed. Every forgotten favor became another line. Every sacrifice became another invoice. Every unpaid loan quietly resurfaced. The total climbed faster than a rocket launch. 100,000. 500,000. 1 million. Then Lyra looked at me with the sweetest smile. I think we're forgetting galactic inflation. You're evil. I learned from humans. She added inflation adjustments, late payment penalties, professional consulting rates, emergency response premiums, interest. Then, with theatrical seriousness, she added one final category. Emotional damage caused by chronic favoritism, calculated over 20 years. I nearly spilled my tea again. Can we legally bill that? We can certainly try. The final number appeared across the screen. It exceeded my parents' invoice by nearly 20 times. I stared at it for several silent seconds. Oddly enough, I wasn't angry anymore. The anger had vanished somewhere between holiday turkey preparation fees and free technical support provided every Christmas. Now I was simply curious. Professionally curious. I wanted to know what expression my father would make when he realized his own accounting system worked both ways. I pressed the print command. The apartment printer hummed. Printed. Paused. Displayed a warning. Large document detected. Estimated pages, 73. Then another message appeared. Recommendation: emotional support may improve printing efficiency. Even the printer thought my family was ridiculous. On the morning of the wedding, I wasn't squeezing into an uncomfortable formal suit or sitting in the last row as instructed. Instead, I was sharing breakfast with Lyra on the observation deck of Orion Station, watching 3 moons slowly drift past the enormous panoramic window while cargo ships danced between them like glittering insects. My communicator buzzed every few minutes. My mother had sent 4 messages. My father had sent 6. The latest one simply read, "Last chance to make the right decision." I smiled, silenced the notifications, and took another bite of my pastry. I think I already did. Meanwhile, several light years away on Earth, the wedding was beginning exactly on schedule. Emily looked beautiful, according to the photos guests were already posting. Kalen wore the ceremonial silver robes of his people, their embroidered patterns glowing softly whenever he looked at his bride. Even through the pictures, it was obvious those two were hopelessly in love. That made me genuinely happy. Unfortunately for my parents, happiness has a habit of making people curious. "Where's your oldest child?" The question started almost immediately. My father forced a smile. "Oh, work emergency." A cousin frowned. "On his sister's wedding day?" My mother quickly added. "He's very busy." Another guest asked. "Didn't he already arrive on Earth last week?" My parents exchanged nervous glances. Across the reception hall, Kalen's family politely observed the awkward conversation. The Varek valued honesty above almost everything else. Watching humans stumble through obvious lies fascinated them. Then came the interruption no one expected. A delivery drone floated through the grand entrance, politely announcing, "Priority wedding gift confirmed." Every head turned. The drone carried an enormous polished gift box wrapped in elegant silver paper. Attached to it was a thick leather-bound folder that looked more like an encyclopedia than a greeting card. My sister smiled. "Oh, that must be from my brother." She happily accepted the package. My parents suddenly looked as though someone had unplugged their confidence. "I'll open this one first," Emily announced. The guests gathered closer. Even the musicians paused. She lifted the lid. Inside rested a handwritten letter tied with a blue ribbon. Emily unfolded it. The first sentence made her laugh. "Dear Emily, congratulations on marrying someone with enough common sense to never invoice his future children." Several guests chuckled. Then she noticed a massive folder underneath. "What is this?" My father cleared his throat. "Probably paperwork." He sounded considerably less confident now. Emily opened the folder. The title page read, "Official Counter Invoice. Prepared in response to invoice number 1 from my parents." A ripple of laughter spread through the room. Kalen leaned over curiously. "This seems entertaining." Emily turned the page. The first item appeared. 14 years of professional babysitting services. The second. Emergency plumbing repairs completed without charge. The third. Construction of family vacation cabin. labor included. People started smiling. Then came holiday meals personally funded after parental budget shortages. A louder laugh echoed across the ballroom. Emily continued reading. Computer repairs. Vehicle maintenance. Snow removal. Roof replacement assistance. Electrical repairs. Free technical support every holiday because apparently turning devices off and on remained impossible. Even Kaylin's stern grandfather laughed at that one after the universal translator caught up. The pages kept coming. Every forgotten favor. Every unpaid loan. Every sacrificed weekend. Every family emergency I'd solved without asking for anything in return. Then the invoice became increasingly ridiculous. Listening to 3-hour arguments without billing overtime. Pretending Dad's barbecue wasn't burned beyond scientific explanation. Guests burst into laughter. Assembling furniture despite instructions clearly being upside down. Even the wedding photographer had to lower the camera because he was laughing too hard. Emily wiped tears from her eyes. I remember that bookshelf. More pages. Finding Mom's glasses while they were on her head. 23 separate occasions. The room exploded with laughter. My father stared at the floor. My mother whispered, "This isn't funny." Unfortunately for them, nobody agreed. Then came the final category. Printed in enormous bold letters. Emotional damage caused by 20 years of favoritism. Professional consultation fees included. Silence. Emily slowly turned to the last page. Her eyes widened. She quietly read the total. Then looked at our parents. Then back at the number. Finally, she couldn't help herself. She laughed. Not a polite little chuckle. A full, uncontrollable laugh that spread through the reception until nearly every guest was wiping tears from their eyes. At the bottom of the final page, one sentence waited in elegant lettering. Payment appreciated within 30 days. Late fees will be applied according to the same family policies established by the original invoice. Just as the laughter began settling, Emily folded the document, stood up in the center of the reception hall, and looked directly at our parents with an expression none of them had expected to see. Emily took a slow breath and looked around the reception hall before speaking. I didn't know any of this. The laughter faded into silence. She turned toward our parents, holding both invoices in her hands. You told me my brother couldn't make it because he was too busy with work. Either of them answered. You never told me you demanded money from him just to attend my wedding. My father straightened his jacket. We were teaching him responsibility. Kaylin quietly stepped beside his new wife. Among the Varick, newly married couples traditionally stood together during moments of family conflict. It was considered a promise that neither would ever face hardship alone. He looked at my parents with calm, steady eyes. On my world, he said through the universal translator. Parents give because they love. Children help because they love. When either side sends an invoice, the family has already become poor. Several of his relatives nodded in agreement. Even guests who had never met me before applauded. My mother's face turned crimson. This was supposed to stay private. Emily shook her head. No. It was supposed to never happen. She reached into her pocket and activated a holographic communicator. A familiar notification sounded in my apartment aboard Orion Station. Incoming family call. Lyra smiled knowingly. You'd better answer. The wedding reception appeared before me in crystal clear holographic detail. Hundreds of guests looked toward the floating image. Emily smiled the moment she saw me. I'm so sorry. I smiled back. Congratulations, little sister. She laughed through watery eyes. I wish you were here. So do I. She held up both invoices. Did you really keep records of everything? I shrugged. Not at first. Most of it came from old bank statements and photos. Lyra remembered the rest. Lyra waved cheerfully from beside me. Several Varick guests waved back. Emily looked down at the final page again. So, do Mom and Dad actually owe you all this money? I couldn't help smiling. No. The room grew quiet. I never expected a single credit. I looked directly at my parents. The invoice was never about collecting money. It was about showing you how ridiculous it feels when someone puts a price tag on love. Neither of them could meet my eyes. I spent years helping this family because I wanted to, not because I expected repayment. I fixed roofs because we lived under the same roof. I babysat because Emily was my sister. I paid bills because families help each other when times are hard. I paused for a moment. That's what families do. I reached toward my console. Another document appeared on the wedding hall projector. Across the top it read, "Account paid in full." Gasps echoed through the room. "I've cancelled the entire invoice." My father looked genuinely confused. "What? I don't want your money." A second document appeared. It was a donation certificate. "I donated the full amount of the fictional invoice to the Galactic Children's Foundation in both of your names." The room erupted into applause. Kalen grinned. His grandmother laughed so hard she nearly spilled her drink. Even the musicians started clapping. Emily covered her face, trying not to cry. "You idiot!" she laughed. "You're making everyone emotional at my wedding. I figured someone should." She smiled. "I love you." "I know. And next family celebration." She pointed a finger at me. "You're coming whether Mom and Dad like it or not." "I wouldn't miss it." The reception continued with dancing, music, and enough food to feed a small colony. Surprisingly, the happiest people there seemed to be Kalen's enormous alien family, who spent the evening retelling the story of the human who defeated bad parenting with accounting. By the time the celebration ended, the phrase had already become an inside joke among them. Later that night, Lyra and I sat together beneath Orion Station's massive observation dome. Beyond the transparent ceiling, colorful nebulae stretched across the darkness while countless stars glittered like scattered diamonds. She rested her head against my shoulder. "So," I looked at her. "So? If we ever have children." I groaned dramatically. "Oh no." She smiled with unmistakable mischief. "Should we charge them rent for breathing?" I laughed. "Absolutely not." "Electricity usage?" "No." "Diapers with compound interest?" "Definitely not." She pretended to sound disappointed. "What a terrible business plan. We'll raise them the old-fashioned human way." "And what's that?" "With terrible dad jokes, unconditional love, and absolutely no invoices." She laughed so hard that nearby travelers turned to look at us. I laughed with her. Looking out at the endless galaxy, I realized something my parents never understood. The greatest investment anyone could ever make wasn't measured in credits, receipts, or compound interest. It was measured in kindness freely given, love freely shared, and the people who chose to stand beside you without ever expecting a bill in return. And that was one account that would always stay beautifully, permanently paid in full.